Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt and her legacy. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt and the fall of an empire. The golden sun blazed over Alexandria, casting its light upon the towering temples, marble palaces, and bustling streets of the greatest city in Egypt. The air was thick with the scent of myrrh and sea salt, and in the grand halls of the royal palace, a woman stood at the heart of history. She was a queen, a warrior, a strategist, and a legend. She was Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, and her reign would be filled with power, passion, and betrayal. Born into the great Ptolemaic dynasty, Cleopatra was not Egyptian by blood, but she embraced the traditions of her people like no ruler before her. Unlike her predecessors, she spoke Egyptian fluently, dressing in the sacred robes of the goddess Isis, presenting herself not just as a ruler, but as a living deity. But the throne of Egypt was never secure. Her father, Ptolemy XII, had left behind a kingdom teetering on collapse, and upon his death, Cleopatra was forced to rule alongside her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. But power was not meant to be shared, and soon, jealousy and betrayal consumed the palace. The young pharaoh's advisors saw Cleopatra as a threat, a woman too powerful, too intelligent to be controlled. They plotted against her, forcing her into exile. But Cleopatra was not one to be defeated so easily. While her enemies schemed in Alexandria, she gathered her forces, raising an army in the deserts of Syria. She needed a powerful ally to reclaim her throne, and fate would soon deliver one to her: Julius Caesar, the greatest general of Rome. Caesar had arrived in Egypt to settle the civil war between Cleopatra and her brother. The Roman leader was known for his cunning, but Cleopatra was just as clever. She devised a plan, one so bold that it would be spoken of for centuries. Under the cover of darkness, she had herself wrapped in a carpet and smuggled into Caesar's palace in pair. When the carpet was unrolled before the Roman general, Cleopatra stepped out, radiant, confident, unafraid. Caesar was captivated. Here was no ordinary queen. Here was a woman of unmatched intelligence, beauty, and ambition. Together they plotted to seize Egypt. A bloody war erupted in the streets of Alexandria. The royal palace burned, and Ptolemy XIII was driven into the Nile, where he drowned. With her brother dead, Cleopatra took back her throne, ruling alongside another brother, Ptolemy XIV, though it was clear she alone held true power. In the months that followed, Cleopatra and Caesar became more than allies. They became lovers. She bore him a son, Caesarion, the child she believed would one day unite Egypt and Rome. But Rome was a treacherous place, and even the mighty Caesar was not safe. On March 15, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated by his own senators, stabbed to death in the halls of power. Cleopatra was now alone. With Caesar gone, she needed a new ally, a new protector, a new king. And so, she turned to Mark Antony, Rome's most fearless and charismatic general. Their meeting was legendary. Cleopatra, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love, sailed toward Antony on a ship covered in gold, with sails of purple silk and oars made of silver. Antony, a warrior who had faced countless battles, was powerless against her charm. Their love was passionate, reckless, and dangerous. Together they ruled as gods, their names whispered across the great cities of the world. But, in Rome, another man had risen to power: Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir. He saw Cleopatra and Antony not as lovers, but as a threat to Rome itself. The conflict between them became a war for the future of the world. Octavian's legions marched upon Egypt, and in the greatest naval battle of the age, the Battle of Actium, Antony and Cleopatra faced the might of Rome. As the battle raged, Cleopatra's fleet broke formation and fled, and Antony, in his despair, followed her, leaving the battlefield behind. Rome was victorious. Antony's forces deserted him, and Octavian marched upon Alexandria. Betrayed, abandoned, and knowing there was no escape, Antony fell upon his own sword. As he lay dying, he was carried to Cleopatra, where he died in her arms, whispering his final words of love. With Antony gone, Cleopatra refused to be paraded through Rome as a trophy. She knew what awaited her: humiliation, captivity, and death at the hands of Octavian, and so, in one final act of defiance, she chose her own fate. In the chambers of her palace, Cleopatra held a venomous asp to her breast. Letting the deadly snake sink its fangs into her skin, the poison spread swiftly, and with a final breath, the last pharaoh of Egypt was gone. Octavian claimed Egypt for Rome, ending a dynasty that had ruled for over 300 years. The age of the pharaohs was over. But Cleopatra's story did not fade into history. Her name became legend, her tale whispered in the halls of time, a story of power, ambition, and a love that defied an empire. She was the last queen of Egypt, and though her kingdom fell, her legacy lives forever.